I'm in charge over here of the. Gotta make sure. Okay.
Hanging out just another night of the week, or to be more specific, it's a Tuesday Eve. Got some ideas that just might intrigue. You should come on by tonight. We're spilling the beans.
Oh wait, that's not going into the.
we had an echo because it was playing through yours.
Oh yeah, it's still playing through mine.
There it is.
Just mute it.
Where's your mute on here?
We're trying out some new stuff here, people. How you doing, kids?
Where's your mute on there?
Oh. Okay.
Oh
All right, we got it.
All right. We're good. How's it? Is it looking okay?
no.
I'm getting shocked like crazy right now.
Yeah.
You getting shocked?
Yeah.
Static.
Really?
Yeah, but I've been running around on the. It's dry. Welcome. Thanks for joining, everyone. Taylor, thanks for being here. Boner, lovely. So we're here with Abel. We've got Kaylee
And Connor.
and me, Connor.
Connor.
So really cool. We've got a switcher hooked up. We've had a switcher hooked up before, but this one's even cooler. So hopefully we can show some things that Kaylee might be searching for online. And it just opens up other camera options for the future. So
Yeah, we're learning.
yeah,
Me in particular, I'm really trying. Like, I don't know anything about this
Oh.
video switching stuff,
pick it up quick.
but we were able to figure out this. There we go.
Look at that.
there it
Whoa,
is. We
picture
can
in.
Google
It's called
whatever.
picture in picture.
PIP.
So, and then we got that, and this thing's cool. This thing can it can hold music. It can hold sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be able to do funny little sound effects. If any of you guys have any
Cool.
sound effects you want to send me, I can try to figure out how to put them on there.
That's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat little video switcher.
It's got this cool little knob.
Very powerful. Yeah, for fading in and out. That's
Fading.
really nice.
Yeah.
So our show tonight has to do is a good idea that Abel came up with, which is breaking the habit, like habitual things, ritualistic things.
Yeah, getting out of a creative rut.
Not
I
a
d-
rut that is creative, but
Right.
a rut.
A
of
rut
your
that
creative,
if you
of your
find-
creativity.
Yeah, right. You find yourself kind of following the same patterns and formulas. It's good to try to break those so that you find new avenues and explore new territory.
Mhm.
And ideas for getting out of those ruts, because it can be really difficult. Like you spend so many years learning what you do. I mean, I would say, like, it probably wasn't until I was like 4 years into playing guitar that I felt even moderately comfortable with my playing.
Mm.
But throughout that time, you're going to develop a lot of habits that are probably very wrong, and some of them create good results, and some of them potentially hold you back. And so the idea is, like, let's identify that stuff and let's figure out ways to potentially mitigate that.
What do you mean by habits? Like with music, like the way you play, like if you keep like doing a certain like routine or
yeah. So, like, I think probably the most common thing would be like you'll find yourself building songs out of the same exact type of structure. And a lot of that is probably based off of the music you like or whatever. But potentially, you find you have success with a particular song, or you really like a particular song you did, then you find yourself kind of building all these other songs, and they kind of sound like that song, and like ways to break that.
So you get stuck in kind of like a loop.
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. You don't want to become formulaic, because then, like, for me, like, my thinking is like you should always be learning.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think the only way to do that is to explore new territory. And I was talking to you guys about how one of my first when I first realized that I was doing that, this is going back many years ago, I found myself building songs in the same way almost every time.
Mhm.
And it just, that always kind of sounded natural to me.
Mhm.
And so I needed a way to break that habit. And so what I used to do is, instead of thinking of songs in terms of like bars and beats, as far as I'm going to play this part of the song for 4 bars, and then this part, the chorus will be 8 bars. Instead of thinking in terms of that, what I would do is I would put on like a movie or a show, and I would write the song based on what was happening in the show. It would completely, like, you would completely lose any sort of bars and beats. It was like when something kind of got climactic, I'd switch into, and with that, it kind of just opened my eyes to different ways of putting songs together. Not that any of those songs were like used the way they were, but it got you more comfortable in different transitions that you normally wouldn't think of, but because the show or the movie made it so that you switched at a certain time, you found some things that you liked that you would have never thought of. So that was just like one example.
It's like a nice exercise, you know.
Yeah. Yep,
like-
exactly. It is definitely an exercise. Like, my intention was never to write movie scores, but it can break you out of your habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few games that we've played that friends have that we've heard of, like for music and stuff, and it's like they're exercises just to get things going. I mean, that's why improv is so great, right? Is you just like toss out one subject, and
you just
you have
keep
to run with
building
it.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change it up a bit,
Yeah.
It's big. It's a big thing. Yeah, it's very helpful.
I forget what I was watching on improv, but there's like a few sort of rules when it comes to improv, and the first, one of the rules I came up with that I found was very interesting was you always go with whatever the person you're communicating with or improving with, you always go with what they say. You never give them a no.
Oh, yes, and
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
And
a
I thought,
huge part of it.
Yes, and
So
yeah.
you affirm everything that, because if you say no, or if you like disagree with it, it leaves them nowhere else to go. So it helps you keep just
Right.
the momentum up.
I see.
Yeah. I found that very interesting, and probably a great way. That's probably a great example. Doing improv is probably an awesome example of like always being able to get out of any sort of habits, because you're constantly confirming or affirming the person that you're talking to, or the people you're talking to, and going in different directions.
And they have different habits and different styles.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, changing a style. I mean, in style, let's just use that as a habit, right? If you're just always playing, let's say for music, or always, it's interesting to think like your favorite artists sometimes just stick with that sound. But there's there's deviation within their songs.
Sure.
Their songs it may be of the same genre, but like just it's a new birth in almost every song. That's really what you as an artist also want, right? Like every piece or any little thing that you birth is its own.
Maybe like it's a different concept, but like the concept changes, but
Sure.
the sound is the same still.
Exactly. And so yeah, it's easy to get in there. I can see that, especially for like writing too.
Yeah.
For like the structure of writing. Oh, I've got songs that work that people tend to like.
Yeah.
But after a while, I'm sure, so just trying different writing styles.
Yeah.
Just researching, Yeah, there's a few books like for songwriting. Like just check them out. Maybe it won't work at all for you, but that one's really good. I like that. Like the using a different medium.
Yeah. Too.
Film.
Yeah.
To like switch it up a bit. I was writing some things over the vacation, winter break, and I tried to look for the music that best fit what I was writing, the topic of what I was writing, like the setting or whatever. I don't even know what it was but I put on this like I recently found the heater. Sorry, Kaylee. I recently put on a good catch. I've been into this Russian what is it, the Russian or it's the Red Army Choir. It's,
Okay.
and it's just this kind of like it pumps you up, this classical Russian
Was it
music.
Is it like
It's a lot of it was in Fargo. Like I got it from Fargo season 3.
is it like operatic, or is it like
Some
classical,
of
or
it's
is
it's both. Some of it's very orchestral. The choir is like it's a group of men and women, I think, singing. There are also dancers involved. It's like a big thing, and so I put that on
Mm.
as like kind of not even inspiration,
Yeah.
but as like an ether or something to help me get into that atmosphere of what I was writing, you
Mhm.
know. And
What are they called again, Connor? Russian choir.
the Red Army Choir, yeah.
Red Army.
do you want me to show?
They're actually really interesting. I mean,
There you go, picture in picture.
there are some things that I'm not.
Alexandra Ensemble?
Yep, yeah.
Oh, look at these guys.
There are some songs that
Whoa.
are more operatic, and I'm not as wild at about them. Yeah, that's the album. So there's a song on there called Cossacks Army. It's a it's a great, musically, I really love the song.
Yeah.
And it's just this, it just gets you going, you know.
Yeah.
But I also then after that had another song, and these songs came from Fargo, the show. Ooh, sorry, Kaylee. They're just already great atmospheric songs, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and that just so happened that wasn't even the atmosphere I was writing about, you know what I mean, but it was just an emotional,
Yeah.
like just it's in the same realm,
Yeah.
you know. These two mediums kind of fit,
Yeah.
as opposed to if I was listening to the Pixies,
Yeah.
just wouldn't have quite done it, you know.
Quite worked, yeah.
But this is the
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, the Red Army Choir, really interesting too. They I think it was in 1988.
Whoa.
They all passed away. They all died in a plane crash.
Are you really?
Yeah, on their
That's
way on their
nuts.
way to a show, dancers and everything. It was terrible. They
Oh,
were
wow.
on their way to I forget where. Maybe it was Japan. But really crazy. But that album that Kaylee showed was
64 members. Wow.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy.
When was it? 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Oh, is that recent?
They
Holy
crashed into the
moly.
Black Sea. Wow.
Wow.
Ugh.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I felt bad not knowing. Oh, Justin's on. Hi, Justin.
What's up,
Justin
Justin?
uses the Gladiator soundtrack. Cool.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. That pumps you up. Yeah, that's good.
Hans Zimmer. Oh, yeah. All day. Yeah.
Want to switch back?
Yep.
To,
We're going to get a little table for me over here, and I'll be the
That'd be good.
switcher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just an example I was using to kind of just break the mold.
Break the mold, right? And yeah.
of this and that was more for inspiration, but and I'm not as skilled a writer or as skilled in certain arts to see a certain monotony occur yet.
Yeah.
You know, for music I can definitely, because sometimes like things just aren't working, so I could see that. And same with that, I haven't quite dove into it to say, but you definitely have, and Rob would our friend
yeah.
Rob would definitely have to say, Taylor, I'm sure too.
Yeah.
You know, you get into this style,
Yeah.
and it's easy to just get locked into that,
Mhm.
and different ways to just expand and experimenting.
Yeah.
Experimenting.
Yeah.
Kaylee, what do you use? Do you have anything that either helps inspire you or helps you get out of a you know, like, or do you find yourself getting into repetitive applications of art or anything that you'd like to break free of?
Maybe sometimes with like painting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got to a point where, because when I first started like painting and stuff, I was very like obviously very like new to it, so I would just like grab different colors and then just kind of do whatever. But I think after like doing that for like a certain point, you start to get some kind of like impatience with yourself, or like, no, I want to like actually like make something that like I see, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Because I do more like abstract things
Right.
a lot of the time, or just like expressive as like whatever comes out. But then because I didn't really have like the technical skill to make like do like a still life or something like that,
Right.
I think there were definitely points of like trying to find ways to like do that.
Right.
So I would say that's like some type of like rut, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that helped me with like using different mediums like
Yeah.
together, kind of getting into like the multimedia thing.
Right. Because you're still learning, like all of that. Right. And I think there's almost a zen to that. Is you start to step away from being a beginner to a lot of things. You start to step into a monotony, you know, of a certain style or form.
Yep.
And there's the idea of beginner's mind, you know. And for a beginner, it's a good thing, you know, to always keep it. That's why it's so. But really, all that is just openness,
Right.
being completely open.
Right.
You know, certain musicians, you for example, especially when we were younger and your music was a little different, you still listen to hip hop all the time.
Yeah.
And we did not play. We played more like, you know, like rock, you know, definitely. Even though actually we did have a couple of covers of like pop hip hop.
Oh, you're talking about Loud and Cloudy stuff.
Cloudy, you know, and then
we were just talking about this. Me and I was hanging out with Allie.
Oh yeah,
and Shelby.
Yeah,
we were just talking about Loud and Cloudy. We were talking about our basement concerts and stuff.
Yeah, those were fun.
Great.
And so there was a time where, and you struck me, and I thought, and I was and always am kind of a novice with the stuff, but starting to travel in that circle of musicians, you were one who listened to everything, you know.
Oh
what I mean?
yeah.
And we're totally open to learn more things. I think you were like really into Fugees around that time.
I feel like you're the same as well. You both of you. I feel like you listen to.
Yeah, definitely.
You're all over the place.
We learned from, but this was when we were much younger too. You
Oh
know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And you were even then an accomplished musician. As far you were writing songs, you know, and I didn't know many people that were doing that, but you listen to all types, and that really I think helps. Like,
yeah,
would you
it
agree?
definitely, yeah,
You know,
yeah, it's definitely like, if you're limiting yourself to like, if it, to me, it seems bizarre that you would ever pursue like any sort of you know, artistic medium and not have an appreciation for the broad spectrum of everything that has come out. You know, like it would be very bizarre to me, and I feel like you're not going to be good. You are not going to be good at your craft if like you're a aspiring guitar player and all you listen to is one genre and that's all you like and you have no appreciation for anything else. You're not going to be good. You're going to sound very formulaic. You're not going to have any influences. You're just going to be so I always found it bizarre because you would come
and some
across
people are
people
okay
like
with that, right? Some people are okay with just
they just want like the technical skill, or
well, they might be okay with
one.
that monotony, you know. I mean, I don't know, until they come across the
Well,
criticism of it, you know.
The thing is, it doesn't even make sense because all of these styles, you know, the styles that we see now, they came from somewhere, and their roots, their fundamentals are in other things.
Yeah.
They're not in, you know, like, yeah, I feel like you have to have an appreciation for music if you're gonna be a musician, and you have to have for the broad spectrum of music. And if you're gonna be an artist, you have to have an appreciation for, you know, if you're an illustrator, all types of illustration from, you know, the Simpsons to very technical, classical, Renaissance, you know, cross stitching.
Everything.
You know what I mean?
You
like
you should be interested.
Yeah,
like,
and if you're not, you're gonna have a
otherwise
lot
it's-
of problems.
Yeah, and also
yeah.
you should question like what are your reasons for doing it, I suppose. Like, because your
Yeah.
passion just might not be there for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and if someone wants to just, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice. Ever done hobby speed dating to break monotony of expression? like switch styles or genres.
It's a
every
good
hour or
idea.
so. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Fun exercise. That's
That would be another great exercise. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love the idea. It's very smart to have exercises, and that's one thing that I always loved about illustrators
Yeah.
is that they were always in their sketchbooks.
Yeah.
They were always doing exercises, like
Right. Right.
really good illustrators.
Yep.
They and I've been experiencing this a little bit because my very first passion was drawing, but I never ever learned any sort of fundamentals.
Yeah.
I just drew from a reference picture,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I always did it, and it always bothered me because I could never get the things in my imagination out.
Hmm.
I was always stuck in this, referencing things all the time.
Mm.
And so recently I actually started going over like fundamentals, which I never did. And it was so crazy because I remember always having trouble with circles. Like just illustrating a simple circle. And I know like it's impossible to really get it perfect. But like I was like, my circles look terrible. Like it would take me a while to just draw a simple circle. Then, going through these fundamentals, you figure out that um there's a whole like practice for drawing a circle, and there's a technique. That's the word I was looking for, to drawing a circle. And once I learned that technique, I'm like, oh, this is simple. I get this, you know.
Yeah.
But I think like as far as any sort of creative art or anything, we should always be looking for um getting better.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because that helps you kind of like stretch like your mind, and find just like different ways, keep it interesting, keep from like the monotony of like getting into the ruts of doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
So it just helps you try new things, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's crazy. It's like you know, how do you come up with exercises that break you out of those things? Like it really takes some serious thinking out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to think like a movie, someone who makes a film, especially something like that. Like something like a film is so elaborate. There's so many moving parts, right? Being like a
Mhm.
director of a film and like a screenwriter. And how do you break out of habits of, and it's so
Mhm.
funny because like I remember doing a little bit of research on writing, like script writing.
Yep.
And like there's this it's called the hero's journey. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something so basically it's like how like a hero in a story, whether it's a novel or anything like that, follows this certain pattern.
Mhm.
And this pattern is they start off with like a struggle, and they're very sort of set in their ways,
Mhm.
and then they have some sort of like life altering change, and they go through a very intense hardship at that time, and then they come out basically like a better hero,
Mm.
right? And that's like the hero's journey in a nutshell. But are
Oh,
you
I got
finding
a
it up
cool-
there?
Yeah, I got a cool graphic. About
Yeah,
it.
there you go. There it is. That's exactly right. So like this is something that gets taught a lot. When I looked into this, I started to realize like what movies like use something like this, and what movies like pay no mind to
Mhm.
something like this. And it was very interesting. It's very interesting how like a lot of the movies that I found I really didn't care for too much
Follow
would use
this.
something like this.
Got it.
Mhm.
And then the ones that weren't doing this. But this is what kind of gets taught if you go to writing school.
Oh, yeah.
You know
It's
what I
a
mean?
Formula.
Right.
of-
It's like a formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine if everyone did this, it would just be like, every story would be the same. So it's like, how do you break out of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you
Especially-
make it a squiggly instead
Yeah,
of a
right.
circle?
Yeah.
Or how do you make it? How do you switch those things up? You know what I mean? Like change the timing, because this is almost like, also, though it's in a circle, it's almost a timeline.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that's
Like,
what they call it, a radial map,
Yeah, you know. So I
because it
mean,
has to come full circle.
so you're
for-
restricting yourself to some kind of a formula.
Yep.
You know. But it is not a bad start to look at and then say, I want to make my own.
Well, there you
You know
go,
what I
right?
mean?
It's like fundamentals,
Right.
Yep.
but you have to break out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But like, you do need to learn it, because if because when you first start, you could potentially create something completely incoherent, which is fine if you're trying to make, like what's that movie, Gumbo? No, not Gumbo. What's that movie by
Gumby?
no, what's his name?
Gummo?
Gummo.
Yeah.
Gummo.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Which is like just
Yep.
kind of like a crazy, incoherent, like, craziness.
Like a collage.
Like a
Yeah,
collage
of
type.
visuals.
Yeah. But like, if you're trying to like do a story, like, you learn it, and then you learn the rules, you learn the fundamentals, and then you break them,
Mhm.
and to kind of find your own way, right?
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
think that kind of does that too. Like Gummo, like it has a story. It's just
It does.
not very linear.
Yeah. It's not.
Necessarily.
You're right. It does. But like, that's like just a really great example of someone like really
Taking it apart.
taking it apart.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know.
So Justin says, has unlearning or in a skill.
Yeah.
Oh, your computer's back up, Connor.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So, but I'll finish this. He says, has unlearning a bad habit in a skill ever caused a new flourish of ideas for you all?
Has unlearning a bad habit or a skill ever
In a skill.
ever caused a new flourish of ideas? Unlearning a bad habit.
I think that the example of, writing to a movie score definitely did that. I picked up on some transitions that I would never have been able to thought of otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
and that definitely broke like a habit of, I never in a million years would I have been able to think of some of the transitions
Mm-hmm.
by doing that. So I think so. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. What about you guys?
I'm trying to think. I think for photography, that's probably where I was most accomplished, or like videography, some of my artistic like photos or videos. Again, I was kind of learning, so I was always learning, so I was always excited to try. Like I definitely like had that style already, was like, and college was a huge thing for me, at least for my instructors, because they had some really good exercises that I would use with friends. Like I would take those exercises back and use them with friends and say, let's try this, let's try this, games, like fun things. You can make up a game. We were talking about earlier, just make up your own thing. So someone throws at you random things, a setting. So what did I say? Like,
Oh, yeah,
so Florida, so 3 words: Florida, a pig, and Apollo 13, the date of Apollo 13. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even to come up with a story, it was just to come up with a name.
Yeah.
So like a silly name, and you do like a fake countdown timer, and then finally when you get there, the person says something ridiculous, I don't know, something like that, and you just pass it around and you start to have fun. It's kind of like improv. It's like a quick on the spot, what can you think of for that.
South Space Swine.
South Space Swine. That sounds like an awesome B movie. Yeah, exactly. So you do stuff like that just to come up with like an idea, and so you can make your own little fun little maps that you had, you know what I mean, and little rules.
Yes.
And fill in the blanks.
I
you know?
agree with that.
And you're like, what do you got? Ad lib. There's tons of ad lib books that were actually super fun. My sister and I would bring with us on vacation. And I remember a couple times in the car when we'd get it out, we'd be cracking up at like the words you'd put in, fill in the blanks kinds of things. But there's so many games you can make, exercises you can do, drawing exercises you can do, illustration that you can make for yourself. The circles thing too. I mean, and I have them because I like to illustrate too. And some of the best like quicker illustrations that I make are after I've just done like 5 pages of circles.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
you
go,
loosen up.
go insane. Go
Yeah.
absolutely insane with like a shape or something. You're like, oh, I'm really not good at this. And they say too, sometimes I look and illustrate. I'm just curious what illustrators do, and they're just doing shapes.
Yeah.
Like they're working on a certain type of shape, maybe, and maybe they're shading a shape, or and it's just yeah, go a little bit crazy with overdoing certain things, bizarre things that have to do with the craft, depending on the craft or the art.
Yeah. There's probably a lot you can learn with being as random as possible. You know?
That chaos I think is
Yep.
pretty big in learning something and starting to break away. Unlearning a bad habit in skill.
Here, we already read that one.
Yeah, and one thing that I do, it's not necessarily an art, but it was, well, there is an art, I guess you could say too. There's a book on it, but archery. I had to unlearn a habit that I had developed for like my form. Like it's like golf or anything like that in Olympic archery. You have like, so something that I was doing, I think it was like I was like at the last minute putting my shoulder up or something. A weird tick that people develop like in form. Sometimes it's just like their form and it doesn't necessarily mess with the outcome of what they're trying to do. But sometimes it does, like in golf, archery, anything with form, it's so you have to unlearn it. You have to stop doing that. And once you stop doing that, it actually opened up several other forms that I could never acquire before, because I had a certain, I can't remember, I think it had to do with back tension, maybe not shoulder work, but and so that just opened up, and so I was able to actually start to master other forms or just try different things, different releases. It was really fun, and that was a skill that I definitely had like achieved a certain point where I was kind of in a rut, just shooting the same score, what's going on, sometimes a little better. But I didn't know what the problem was, and talk to the best and look out to the best, because that's who it was. I reached out to a professional and watched them, and then they said, film yourself shooting and see what's wrong. Just watch yourself. And so and then I watched that person do it, and then I watched myself, and I was like, oh. And you see these things. So I think also self-criticism, like if you can record yourself when you're doing things, I'm not sure what for, but I'm sure for acting that's huge, so you can see what you look like when you're doing things.
Yeah,
right?
You definitely, yes, definitely.
Have you ever recorded your, well, I know you have, in Clown or Sally, but have you done it like not necessarily in prep for something, just to see what you look like? And
I think definitely. I think when I was younger, there were more times when I would just have like a camera on, and just like either be like moving stuff around or just anything like that.
Yeah, like experimenting.
Yeah, and just seeing like, because that can end up being like B-roll for something too, or like that could fit into. I think because I'm like a hoarder with like video stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I used to always like be filming things, so I think and more so I think I did that. Yeah. And I don't know how much I like watched it back and like criticized it to see, I know I did it with like acting class and stuff too, definitely.
Yeah.
For just like practicing like a monologue or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other episode that made me think of it, is sometimes the boundaries that we place on ourselves are like stage fright, or like not opening up to a certain, so many people say it, and I say it too, like I hate the sound of my own voice. So like to hear yourself someone said, well, make it so that you don't hate the sound of your voice.
If you do it enough, you'll eventually like just get over it. You're always going to
Yeah.
be very, in anything you make, you're always going to be super critical of it.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're going to be critical of yourself all the
Mm.
time. I think it's just human nature, unless you have some sort of ego problem,
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense that most people hate the sound of their voice. And also you don't hear your voice normally when you're talking the way it actually sounds,
Right.
because you're hearing it from, the back of your head.
In there.
Yeah. You're
somewhere.
not hearing it, you're hearing something very different.
Yeah, certainly.
Um,
Yeah, my voice is always more whiny, and then if I put headphones on, and I'm like, if I were wearing headphones right now, I'd be aware of that, and I'd be talking much softer,
yeah.
have much more of a radio voice. That's a great point, Abel.
Yeah.
Kaylee.
Yeah.
It would be different, but
So you brought up a good point, and I want to get your opinions on this. So you said you reached out to an archer. Is that what you an
Mhm.
archer?
Yep.
Right? And you took their advice.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this recently, and I kind of came to this conclusion, but I wonder what you guys think. I think it's a bad idea to take anybody's advice that you don't like the outcome of what they do. For instance, like if you're an aspiring illustrator, I think it would be a bad idea to take advice from an illustrator that you don't like.
definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It depends. I mean, because you could also take their experience. Maybe they're aware that they're not very good, and they'll. What if their
Well,
advice
it's not
is
that they're not
here's
good,
what
it's
not to
something
do?
you don't like,
Well, what
right?
you mean? So like you don't like their
Yeah, I mean,
you don't like
I
their
guess being
style?
good is subjective, right? So maybe they do have a following. So I guess it's just in particular it's something you don't care for. I feel my point to that whole thing is like everybody has an opinion,
Yeah.
right? And everybody's opinion is going to be different.
Right.
And I think because of that, opening yourself up to taking opinions from people that you look at their work and you say like, I mean, I don't want to make something like that,
Yeah.
could be detrimental and could potentially lead to you practicing things that, don't end up getting you where you want to go. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, if you let yourself get influenced by something that's not necessarily even the wrong way, it's just a way, and
Right.
there's so many other ways to do this.
Right.
This is just the way that this person does it. You've now learned it, so it's easy,
Yeah.
and there's an outcome that you're somewhat happy with.
Right.
Absolutely, you need to definitely. I mean, there's a great thing, like it's okay to not like your mentor's work. You know what I mean? Like if if you have a mentor and you don't like their work, there's a reason they're your mentor. You know what I mean? But hopefully they're a good mentor because they're saying like, well, I'm not teaching you how to do my work. I'm teaching you how to do work, a certain type of work. Because there are those who you may not like their style, but that's just the style they like to do. Or that's just like how they're like, oh, it's just how I draw. Like, I don't know what to tell you. If you're looking for something that's not as rounded or bubbly, then do it this way. Here's another artist. So hopefully that person you're taking advice from isn't as like, because what it sounds like you're saying is like the influence would have to be pretty heavy if you're just going with one way to do something.
Sure. So like imagine this. Imagine like you don't know how to do something. Let's say you want to learn how to paint. You don't know how to paint. So you go to your phone and you look on YouTube how to paint. And you're going to get like a whole laundry list of different people telling you how to paint. And so from there, it's sort of your job to figure out who am I going to listen to, right? Because everyone has an opinion on it. Now you could look for like, well, let me see the person that went to school the most, the longest, or is the most accomplished, but ultimately, I think you need a way of weeding out all these different opinions, because I think they're a dime a dozen,
Hmm.
right? I think you can get opinions anywhere. You can get them in libraries, you can get them on the internet. You can get so like it just had me thinking like I think it's wise to just not listen to anybody's opinion, with the exception of the people that get the results that you could potentially be chasing, or potentially see things in that um you might want to work towards.
Mm. Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
gravitate towards like what
Yeah.
we would want to make, or like what we would
Yeah.
things we like.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would want to be influenced by
Yeah.
So learn
like
how they're
music
done.
you like.
Yeah.
Or,
Learn how
yeah.
it's done.
But I think that we
the things
do
that
it.
you like.
We don't do that more often than we think.
Yeah.
I think it's probably very common for most people when they're trying to learn a new skill
Mhm.
to go on YouTube and kind of just pick the one that has the most views
Mhm.
Yeah.
and roll with that.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well,
I
Yeah.
think
if-
that's
yeah.
very common.
I think if
Mm.
someone's learning,
To not be as discriminate with it.
Yeah.
definitely, I would think, yes. So that brings up what I was just about to say,
Can you
Justin. Can
learn
you
from
still learn from styles you don't like?
Mm.
That kind of, I'm thinking, if you're just learning something like that, you should look at all of them. You know what I mean? And if there's
Sure.
too many to look at, that's kind of tough. But
For that, I
but
would
like what you're saying, just go to the stuff that you like
yeah.
and research the people involved in the comics, and if it's artists or in the illustrative paintings that you like, or
Yeah.
anything like that, look them up and look at like where they go to school, who else, what are similar artists to them, and how do they do it. Oh, here we go, this person actually has like a lecture, like a free lecture online. And I think definitely you can learn from other styles you don't like. That's the idea of just trying it. If you don't like it, that's fine, but
Yeah.
a happy mistake.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think, like we were talking about like AI or anything, like there are these happy mistakes when you just try something random,
Yeah.
Mhm.
toss it out there.
I would say, Justin, that if you can see something in some work that you can appreciate, then it might be a good idea to learn off of that. It might be okay. And for an example, I would say like, okay, like I don't make mainstream music, right? My music is experimental, and it tends to fall not into it won't go over well in a mainstream audience. Okay, but there are some mainstream songs that I don't particularly like the artist. I don't particularly like the song, but there might be one part of that song, one element in that song that I'm like, that's interesting.
Hmm.
And so from there, it could be just like the way it's produced, a part of it that's produced. From there, I think it's a good idea to learn to try to figure out how that might have been accomplished, right? And then use that as a skill that you acquire. I would say like assuming your horizons are open enough. In other words, you have an appreciation for most things on the spectrum of what you do.
Mhm.
I would say if there's something you really just don't care for,
Mhm.
I wouldn't go near it.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're in the right mindset. If you only like one very random, like, I only like, new metal, like,
Yeah.
and that's all you learn. Like, I think you're going to run into problems. But
Yeah,
like, if you have an appreciation for everything, and you
Yeah, you can
hear
have an
something
appreciation. You don't necessarily need to have a like for it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're open to listen to it, and there might be a part of it that you do like,
right.
and you're like, oh,
In that regard,
Yeah.
that can probably give you a lot of branching out
that's
from
the
what you
appreciation.
do.
Absolutely.
That could
yeah.
probably get you very far, because you're listening to something that generally, wouldn't be part of what you do, but there's a part of it that you appreciate. So now you definitely have branched off into a road that's probably far off from what you do
Yeah.
normally. Right.
What
So
I'm gathering from everything you're saying too is don't give yourself limitations.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? Beware limitations. And I think that's a big thing. When I was younger and playing drums, terrified of reggae, like not touching reggae. I think
Sure.
a good friend of mine who I played with and learned a lot, he played guitar. He tried to play reggae once. He said, you don't, you're not good at reggae. Don't play it. And he was kind of joking, but also I just didn't play it very well. And I was like, yeah, I won't. Fast forward a bunch of years, and I have a buddy who's in a reggae band, and I wanted to help. And I was like, there in the back of my head, there was like this curiosity for it. And so I kind of forced myself into it, and it really struggled, really tough, but kind of figured it out. But it's opened the floodgates for other playing. Like
Yeah.
I now can play a lot of other music.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm looking at it, I feel like from the backstage, like I'm looking at certain ways of drumming from like the backstage. And it's because I learned this style that I did like listening to, but did not like playing. I did not like playing reggae.
Mostly because you were not confident in it.
Yeah, it was hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's sometimes it didn't make any sense when I started to break it down. When I listened to it, when you dance to it and you listen to it, it makes total sense. Great part, for whatever. But you smoked it. But when you try to play it, it's like, you're like, oh, there it is. There's the craft that is that, and so, but as soon as, and so I really, and my friends helped push me through that. And the more I play, and I still struggle with it, the better I still get at the other genres of drumming that I played with other friends, like throughout the rest of the week,
Yeah.
and playing those genres and learning different styles through those helps when I go back to the reggae. So
Yeah.
it's like this full cycle. No limitations, I think is huge. I'd like to try that song, that Red Choir. It's so like uplifting. It's almost a punk beat. It's like, and I'm like, holy shit, I think I can play this on drums, like do like a double kick, and it's like, yeah, you need to be, like you said, you need to open yourself and appreciate. Both of you said that word, was appreciate other styles, and try, and just try. And it's the fuck ups, I think, where you learn from the styles that you don't like. Maybe trying a style, not doing it even, or maybe a style that you do like, and you're like, oh, this went another way. You know? Staying open. And
yeah, that's huge to it.
I think so. Yeah, you're one of the most open-minded thing, and your art differentiates so much. Your paintings, that I think I know why it was hard for you to answer that question, because like you're saying, you're still learning all different styles and stuff. So sometimes you could fall into the rut of doing it, but you're also learning. So, and you're really good at just whatever the fuck I feel like doing, I'm just gonna.
I think that helps too, because
Yeah.
even with that big painting, like that's gotten like stressful at a point, because I'm like, I have to be intentional with this because it's a really big canvas, so like I don't want to just do like whatever on it, but that gets stressful sometimes too, because I'm like, I need to do the like splat nothing painting to help my brain like figure out what I want to put on like, the intentional one. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you have to kind of like, it's a different way of like mixing the paint on the palette before it's like ready. You know what I mean? But it's like, to me, it's just like I have to get the energy out first so I can focus enough to do something intentional at the same time.
Right. Right.
That's probably why, like, playing music, like you do like a warm-up jam before you play, like whatever.
Yeah, you get into it. Yeah. I, like Justin said, I like anime, but I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Isekai anime is right. You're limiting yourself to certain things. I sometimes feel like that, and you get punched in the face, I guess, going to certain Comic-Cons and saying this, but if you say like, oh, I don't bother with Marvel, I don't read Marvel, I just read DC, and like starting these kind of wars, like bias wars, I think it goes into all walks of different things.
Yeah,
Like you need to listen to both sides. You need to
It's
from
saying
all
no
sides.
instead of saying yes and.
that's right.
It's the
Right.
same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. Yes. And right. So I mean, if when I started to get into comics again when I was much older, like this was like only a few years ago, I felt like there was like a choice for some reason, DC or Marvel, because there's such like so much hate, like
Yeah,
that goes so far back.
but that's such like I feel like that's the more like mainstream way of looking at it, and the way that we would look at any other artistic medium is you pick the directors and the songwriters and stuff, and it has nothing to do with the
Right.
branding.
Well,
Mhm.
and there was something
So the
interesting about
writers.
that rivalry, though, is I almost assumed that Marvel didn't have good writers. Like I was
No, they have the
like,
same
I
writers.
exactly, but I started the way that like it's almost like the companies want that rivalry
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
I almost and I'm happily I'm not the type, to do this, and that's why I didn't. But I almost could see myself being like, oh yeah, no, I just do anything that's DC and stemmed off of DC, and I might do this, but I stay away from this, or it might have been even reversed. Yeah, I can't remember but if I had done that, I wouldn't have read and then stemmed off from those artists back and forth on Marvel and DC, writers and artists. I wouldn't have read like so much.
Yeah.
It limited my intake of comics because I was able to traverse whatever it's all one plane in that sense. So yeah, there's a limitation there by advertising. Don't be careful of flashy things,
It's branding. That's all that
Yeah.
is. It's branding. It's designed to keep the conversation going so that all those companies are still in people's mouths and in people's mind.
Mhm.
So it's how everything works, how politics works, how music works, how Apple versus PC. It's
Yeah, be
it's
careful of those
everything.
limitations. Right,
It's
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
It's that is just a marketing tactic
Yeah.
to get people to be fired up about one particular side or the other. And
Yeah. So be
that's
careful
how
of
they
branding.
keep the interest.
Yeah, so that's something to be careful of is
Yeah.
the limitations that can be caused by branding in that sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
question all of that. But I think that's the thing is question if you really appreciate something and want to learn it, you should look at every piece of it.
Yeah.
Every just every piece and have fun with it. Games,
Games are huge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can do so many different little games with things. But yeah, also challenge yourself, I think. Try a style that you don't do or and
Yes.
if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like if you're like, I'm not doing it, I
feel like generally you'll learn something.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
I think you should always use that mentality.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
like whenever you make anything, your goal should be to learn something,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's going to influence you. So, and in that point, let's say you create something that you really just don't care for by the time you're done with it. As long as you had the mentality of like, I learned something, I learned a bunch of things I don't like to do, and I'm not going to do them again. That's still progressing you forward.
Mhm.
It's a good mentality to have.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
It really is.
Yeah. All right, kids.
How are we doing for time?
Oh, I'm sure we're well over.
I think we are.
53 minutes, almost an hour.
Oh, well, let's
Yeah.
Did you want to do your reading or we could do your reading next week? It's up to you.
We can just put it up there.
Yeah.
Definitely. So Kaylee has not a weekly blog, but a blog on
I got no feed here.
Yeah, I gotta sign back in.
Oh, there we are. So Kaylee has her weekly blog. She writes beautiful things. This one I've read. It's right. Is this the one you're gonna read? That I read.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost it again.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, we didn't. Oh, great. So here we go.
So hang on.
I'm not passing close.
Oh yeah, this is a longer one. This is called Looks Like a Case of the Mundane. Imagine feeling like when the socks come off at the end of the night all day. Remember what it was like before the ever so constant aches of heart, body, mind? There was a treasure unnoticed with the ignorance to the passing of time, and now we're here. this moment. And now I'm thinking about slicing into a stick of butter and spreading it on crispy bread and how tasty toast is. What a privilege it is to know these sensations, to slip in and out of the stream of consciousness, and to catch a fish. To endure the depths beneath our skin, to live within our means, and to enjoy what at first glance that which may be perceived as boring. To sit and stare off into nothing and silently screech at the abyss and listen for the echo, and oh my gosh, to sweat through our socks while we're always on our toes and collect dead skin under our fingernails as we scratch our heads in wonder. The satisfaction of rearranging furniture, of wiping dust away, the dread of filling your tank in the morning, and the relieving thought that you already got gas the previous day. Checking the weather, finding coupons, sitting in traffic, so many delightfully dull moments. In these little endeavors, we are all the same, though we may move through them in different ways. And we all know the pain, the anxiety, the bewilderment when the day ahead feels like a mountain with no peak, miles and miles of vertical rock, a behemoth of obstructions, and we find ourselves stuck with a belly full of lead, forced to trudge upwards because the sign that leads us around the scenic route is covered up with overgrowth, and who knows if the funds are available to keep the land maintained. But you know what? You can sit at the bottom and ponder as long as you like. You can wander away and skip some rocks across the lot. You can tell the mountain that maybe it isn't a mountain at all. Maybe it's a mudroom. Then kick off your shoes, hang your jacket up, and slide across your floor in your socks. Slide across the floor in your socks. Ugh, that was
Nice.
a long one.
Great job. That was really good.
Thanks.
Good job, Kaylee. So yeah, you can find that at Bread and Circus, breads
Breadsandscircus.org.
breadsandscircus.org. And yeah, we need to upload more stuff onto there.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it.
That's
I
it,
think
kids.
That's all we got.
From Abel, Kaylee,
And
and
Connor.
Connor at the space. Thanks for helping us spill the beans. More next week.
Yeah. Stay
Yep.
tuned. Retune.
Maybe we'll have another camera angle.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hanging out just another night of the week. Or to be more specific, it's a Tuesday Eve. Got some ideas that just might intrigue. You should come on by tonight. We're spilling the beans.